Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of our podcast here. I'm sitting with Robert and Lily Garcia from I Have a CPA Guy, and we are just thrilled to be able to sit here today in this amazing space here to talk about support systems, what we do as accountants, lawyers, marketing professionals to really help the entrepreneurs on the journey. Before we get going into what is some just great stuff, I'm really, really excited, and thank you all for being here. Why don't you tell our listeners here, what is it that you do? Give us your elevator speech, and you don't have to take, it can be a really tall elevator. We can be going to the 50th floor, but take some time, make sure everybody knows all that you do, because we're going to get into some of this stuff. And if you're on the video here, you can see some of the branding here that I think is genius, but give us that elevator pitch.
All right. So I don't have a good elevator pitch. It's something I'm working on, but I'm going to have to connect with you later, right? For some of that coaching that you do. I would tell people that number one, people want is us to explain shit well. That's what we do, right? That's the best thing. We're relatable, right? We're doing what no one else is doing out there, right? We're trying to connect with them in a broader sense. And more than anything else, like our passion is entrepreneurship. So we are them, right? We are our clients. And that's what I would say to people if they ask me, like, what do we do?
So basically, you're not just your average CPA, right? I mean, you guys do amazing things. Lily, tell me what you do for the brand, but also tell me what you do with other entrepreneurs, because you've got an amazing story as well.
Thank you. I'm the one behind the scenes. So I am the director of marketing. So I do all of our marketing and everything else, running the business. He's the one behind the desk, taking care of all, the financial services. And it's what I love. What I do is just creating the relationships. Is deeper than just the accounting and tax services. It really is, well, how are you doing? How is your business doing? Having those deeper conversations than just the traditional services.
That's great. And you can already hear from this tone. So if you just started listening, you're about to get a lot of great things here, because these are support people behind the scenes that are lifting up entrepreneurs. And we're going to get into some more of how they do that. But before we get there, let's talk about the journey. I'm always fascinated. Most of the people that listen say that's what fascinates them is, how does an entrepreneur become an entrepreneur? And we may be support people, but we're entrepreneurs, make no mistake. Tell me about give me a little bit about your journey from the big accounting firms, and then how do we get to I Have a CPA Guy here?
Yeah. So I actually started out wanting to be an attorney.
Yeah.
Man, you're really smart. I didn't know how smart you were. The fact that you didn't become one.
I wanted to be an attorney. I went to St. Mary's. I was like, hey, I'm here for college. I want to go be an attorney. And she was like, well, you need a degree. I'm like, right. That's why I'm here, is to be an attorney, go to law school. She said, no, you need a degree before. And so I was walking away. She goes, but let me give you some quick advice. She's like, we see people come in all the time about, they want to come and be an attorney. They're excited. Then they're doing a history degree or psychology degree or some general, right? And it doesn't work out for some reason. She goes, get a degree in something you can fall back on. So I was doing accounting. Accounting was great. Fast forward, I got to UTSA. I started with Northwest Vista, right? So Alamo Community College, shout out. Got out to UTSA.
Yeah, I went to SAC, man. So we're community college. We got it.
Northwest Vista, when they had 2 buildings, not this whole,
SAC was not as nice as it is today. I was a little scared walking from my car to class, I remember sometimes.
So ACCED, right? They've done an amazing job within their system. So I got to UTSA. I tried to do my best. I sat in front. I met professors. I got involved. Something I didn't do when I was in high school. I dropped out of high school. And so I tried to do a better job. Met some really good friends, and they were like, hey, you're doing accounting. So how about you go to public accounting? I'm like, what's that? and they were like, look, you can make the same amount of money being an attorney and going to school 3 more years, or just get your master's and then come out.
And have a whole lot more debt too.
And so, that's what started. And I was like, wow, there's Big 4 firms. I had no idea what that was. It's just not where I grew up. Then I learned, like, KPMG, it's a Big 4 firm, Big 4 in the world. Right. And so got the opportunity, did everything I needed to do to qualify, to meet and get in front of them, to interview. Fast forward, I got into tax. I actually did more than just tax, transactional. I did some translation work in Ecuador for 6 weeks for a consulting client, because I was Spanish speaking. But I made it to Houston. From Houston, we wanted to come back. We got married in Houston, wanted to come back to San Antonio, right? She never really wanted to leave, but my opportunity was in Houston, so I went with it. Sure. Especially being from a Hispanic family, we don't leave where we grew up. And so I wanted to show that for some of my nieces and nephews. Got back here and just felt like tax was historical looking. And so I was always processing and thinking about the future. And so I got out of public accounting into the private sector, private and public. But I was always the guy that was like, hey, who else is doing what? Are you investing in this? Are you starting something? Like, I always saw opportunities. And I have a really good friend, and she's an immigration attorney. She goes, can you help look over the books with one of my clients? They were on an international visa, investment visa. They had no idea what that was. And I said, yeah, sure. And she goes, well, you should do this full time. And she was already an entrepreneur, right? She was already starting her own firm. And I still wanted to be corporate America, right? I wanted to prove myself. So what I did was I actually started the company because of my licensing and that stuff. And I ran it parallel to my corporate career, right?
Okay.
So for 7 years, high performer in all my, positions, making my way from, Argo to Harlan Clark, which is Veracast, making my way up, and supervising, but I ran them side by side, right? And so very open, very honest with my clients of what I could do and what I couldn't do.
So you were running a private practice or were you running that other company? I may have missed that piece of it. Was it a private? So you were running basically on the side a private CPA firm?
Yeah, consulting on the side.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
Doing both, right? So just, on breaks, lunches, whatever I needed on the way home, calls, nights, weekends, you know what I mean? Just doing whatever we could, but very reactive, right? It's just, I didn't market. We didn't knock on doors. We didn't do any of that. We just allowed people to come to us. And one of the best advices that I had gotten was, because I was ready to be done with corporate America, at some point. And a friend of mine was like, look, build this first and then jump into it. Don't jump into it and build. And so that's what we did slowly. But man, I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit. Like, I always have an opportunity to look around in different spaces and I'm thinking about the next thing. Right. And so for me, being able to jump out of corporate America and into this thing that we'd built over 7 years wasn't easy, right? It was hard.
Talk about that, because the consistent theme from entrepreneurs, right, is the side hustle that becomes the main hustle. What was it? And usually there's like some defining moment for that. Was there a defining moment where you said, the side hustle is not quite the main hustle, but I got to do it? Or was the side hustle, pretty much there and you did it? Was it an easy jump or did you make a big leap?
So I mean, we have to. So these things are very subjective, right? To
of
people.
Course,
it's because people will tell you like it was the hardest thing in the world for me, and other people are like, man, I've done that 10 times over.
Right. But again, some people, their side hustle and their hustle and their main hustle, right, become close, and it's not. But I mean, there are a ton of people. I mean, I've heard some amazing stories where people are just like, I just got it started. I saw a whole lot of potential. There was no money there, and boom, I lived out of my car to go figure it out. Right. I don't do that kind of stuff. What was it for you?
So I think I had still been trying to find myself, right, throughout all of this. Like I said, my journey in life in general, from college or high school, college, growing up, family of 8 brothers and sisters, et cetera, right? Like, I didn't know enough about me. So I'm literally the only one. I think I'm the second that has a master's degree, and I'm the only one that has a professional license. I think in 2018, I was selected to do our leadership program within Harlan Clark.
Okay.
And crucial conversations, emotional intelligence, rank finders, right? There were all these things that helped me better understand who I was.
Sure.
But it also helped me understand who the company was and what I wanted and needed. We talk about culture all the time, right? We get these graduates and we're like, you got to find the right culture. And they're like, I just want a job. Right. So they're really glossing over that. And I did too. I wanted to fit in. I put myself in positions to fit in, and I put myself in positions to succeed. So I'm going to take the job nobody wants, right? I'm going to show up and be the first one there, last one out. But in 18, that really gave me more perspective of who I am and what I needed to be. And the role that I was in wasn't who I was or what I needed to be. I wasn't going to be as effective. Fast forward, we hit the pandemic. We're all going home to work. I'm being asked to sort of supervise and scrutinize my employees. Well, I'm like, I'm not doing that. They're professionals. But it was at that moment that I started seeing COVID, pandemic, businesses were closing, CARES Act, people are confused. Congress is changing laws in the middle of tax seasons and things.
Right.
And I was like, I think it's time. I think it's time that we just get out and do this thing. We'd been saving this entire time to jump into it. And so, yes, we took 50% pay cut. We took, no benefits, all these other things, but we jumped in at the right time. And how I knew that was when I said, hey, I'm going to resign. I'm moving on. People thought it was the weirdest thing. Really probably thought it was like the dumbest thing. We're in the middle of a pandemic.
But it's interesting because your motivation was community based versus not. Let me rewind and ask you something, because it's just something that I've seen personally in my career and in others is, cultural fit.
Yeah.
It's massive. I've seen in leadership programs, I've run those leadership programs. I've been a part of leadership programs. What's interesting about that is when you're educating somebody on cultural fit, there are many people that will get the aha of as, I don't fit with this culture.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you lose them. But it's actually, I think it's somewhat helpful, because cultural fit's if it doesn't work, it's not a bad thing.
Right.
It's just you're not being able to leverage, and the company's not going to be able to leverage the many talents that you have. It's time to move on. But some people also are like, well, wait a second. I mean, is our culture bad? No, it just doesn't fit. It's not a positive or negative. It's whether you fit in on that. And so, anyway, it's a fascinating. You're the first person that I've talked to that had the community calling for something that wasn't a nonprofit, right? There's a lot of community callings in the nonprofit and social sectors, but congratulations. I mean, or thank you, I should say, for making that jump from a community standpoint.
Yeah. I appreciate you calling that out, because I will tell you, people have asked, hey, how's it going? And I'm like, well, we're okay. But in terms of, because people are asking from how's revenue, how's client acquisition, how's the growth, and all these things. And so I've never looked at it in this year and a half that I've been out, right? I quit my job in July of 2020, right? So I've never looked.
You never hear your CPA saying, I don't look at my financials.
No.
That one's a new one for me.
Not at all. Because, here was the deal, right? It's like I knew how much I needed to bring home every month.
Right.
I had enough. I was like, look, we got 2 years to make this happen. Okay. Right. Or we just go back to work for somebody. I'm talented. I'm good.
Yeah.
This was the confidence I was able to build in myself. Sure. So we got 2 years to happen. Right. Now we got through the 1 year. I'm like, cool. I got another year on the back end.
Right.
But it was the outreach that we were building, and it was, what do our clients need? So I participated in Helm Accelerator, participated in leadership programs. A lot of that was meant to really see what San Antonio was about.
Right.
And what the clients needed, more so than I could just sell you a bunch of tax returns or a bunch of bookkeeping.
Well, but that goes to every single entrepreneur has key performance indicators, right? Or KPIs, right? Everybody wants to set one. It could be shocking to most people that your KPIs were not financial measures, which you would figure a CPA, they would be. They, again, once again, were community based. How many people have I helped? So it's very refreshing, and it's not typical, for that. But again, it makes sense, right? When you start framing it another way, because everybody frames a lawyer, because some people are confused about what I do. Well, wait a minute, why are you doing pitch coaching and all these sort of things? I was just a lawyer. Why are you, are they going to give you business? No, but it's a community focused, right? The more people we help, the more we're going to get helped in what we need. Lily, you've been kind of quiet over there. Tell me a little bit about the journey, either together or about even your past, to how you got to this point.
Yeah. So, for about 8 years, I worked for Victoria's Secret and Limited Brands, and I was really good at my job. And then we had our first child, and then I decided, well, we together had a conversation, decided to, stay home with them. So we have 3 boys right now. And so, he started the firm 8 years ago. I am his number one fan, his supporter. So I supported him throughout, through his journey. And, little by little, he has welcomed me into the space, because my thing was, I want to, be a businesswoman, and, but I never really considered being an entrepreneur. He has a huge passion for it. And, he's one of the things I love about him. And so, he welcomed me to the space. He's like, hey, what about we do this together, the firm? And, and I'll be honest, I wasn't on board. He, he was very patient with me for years.
Not a lot of patience. I was like, hey, you could do the bookkeeping while I'm at work, right? Yeah. That was my thing. Yeah, that was because we talk about numbers. I was like, if we did 10 clients times whatever, we could, these things. And she's like, and I'm like, and then in 5 years, so I'm futuristic and I'm ideation, right? In my top 5. And she would not buy in.
Let me guess, you don't like bookkeeping, do you?
No.
See, there you go. I would never buy into bookkeeping.
We know that. It's not a glamorous job, but, so I helped him out with, I helped him out with doing some monthly bookkeeping for some of our clients. And then whenever, a year or 2 years ago is where he was like, come on, I really want you to do this with me.
I'm still pitching here, right?
This is where I see ourselves. And, and I was like, okay. And then one of the factors was, well, how can we be different from the other CPA firms?
Right.
And so I go to him, I was like, was like, yeah, well, we probably, let's rebrand ourselves. We had the traditional, logo, Robert Garcia, CPA. And I kid you not. So I was like, okay, well, give me a few days. Let me think about it, how we can rebrand ourselves. And true story. So I was on my way to Target, doing the Target, mom thing.
The Target run. Oh, yeah.
Yes, Target run.
3 HEB runs and at least 1 Target run and maybe a Costco run every single week. I got them. We all have those runs.
And so on my way to Target, I was just thinking, I was like, how can we rebrand ourselves? And it was during the holiday season. And so I have a good relationship with my UPS guy and now with my Amazon guy. And so I kept saying guy. And I was like, maybe, CPA guy. I was like, CPA guy, he can be the CPA guy. So I went home, didn't think about it. And I actually posted it on my personal account, on my personal Facebook account. I had put, because it was during tax season. And so I was kind of doing a little promotion for the firm. I was like, hey, if you need your taxes done, check out my husband, the CPA guy. That thread, it's just, I received so many comments, so much engagement. Oh, CPA guy, I like that. Oh, that is so cool. Is that what your husband's name or whatever? And I was like, I think we have something, something here.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, I like it. And so a couple of months later, so we rebranded ourselves to I Have a CPA Guy, and that's how our brand, came alive.
So
and
that's
how I became more involved.
So first off, one, you're extremely blessed. I mean, the way she just talked about you, brother, that's fantastic.
We do a great job together. I will say that she's right. The leadership thing I go back to. I didn't have a safety net, so I've always had to not to fail, right? And I had to bring that into our relationship and other places. And so when I learned more about myself, you know what? She don't want to do accounting, but there's a space for her.
Yeah.
Right. And we found that in constant conversation. A lot of people were like, hey, it was so hard, right? Like, oh, that looks so amazing. I'm like, right. But how many times we have a conversation? 3 times a day.
Right.
All the time until we figure that out. And you know what we do after that? We continue to have the conversation. I wasn't sold on the CPA guy initially because it seemed gimmicky and I wanted, again, to fit in. I was trying to fit into someone else's space.
That's right.
Bold colors.
You were trying to get to lawyers, right?
Right.
Have a wooden desk and everything else. Right.
Yeah. And then we realized we weren't them.
Yeah, that's not us.
We're not them.
So there was no cultural fit with the culture of CPAs.
It wasn't. You said it. I'm entrepreneurial. We're dynamic. We're relatable.
Right.
A lot of what people say, I would never guess that you're a CPA because you're so extroverted, right? And that's it.
Right.
And that was you know what? Every time we talk to businesses, that's what it is. That's what stands out. That's what makes us unique. And so it was I love it. And we've embraced it and people have embraced it overall. And so, now it's
well, I will tell you, before we ever met, I did a consult with somebody that came in. I won't say the business or anything. And he's like, I was told I need a lawyer. And I said, really? Who told you? He goes, have a CPA guy. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? He's like, no, have a CPA guy. I mean, right? And I'm like, no, I don't know, but I'll look him up and, tell him thank you. And that was actually kind of what led me to go and find it because, somebody's in my office. And again, even in that first interaction, he's sitting in my office with a lawyer because his CPA said, hey, you need somebody else to look at this on the team. And let me shift over to talk about support systems because that's a big thing for what you do as a career. What I do, the way we do it is very different than what our traditional peers do. I mean, the facts are staggering. 90% of businesses, 90% don't ever make it. It's like 50% fail within 2 years. 70% are gone within 5 years, right? And when you look at what those factors are that fail, it's lack of purpose, or lack of an actual strategic plan, but also not the right team.
Yep.
And so a lot of people will focus. I mean, you've mentioned on here, it's startup week here in San Antonio. This is going to come a little bit after that, but a lot of what we focus with is, these pitch decks and talking about people about setting that first part, mission, vision, values, what's your culture going to be? And then the plan that goes with it. But what they're missing so many times is the right team to execute on that plan. Talk to me about how you fit in on the team. How do you take that team approach in dealing with entrepreneurs as a CPA?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me also just do a real quick call out. So there's a study in San Antonio, right, that also says that 60% is minority and our ownership is only 9% Hispanic and 2% Black, right?
Wow.
In terms of entrepreneurship. So it definitely is a thing. Back office support is a thing, right? The way that I feel like that we're very different and the way that I service. support system is crucial. It's super crucial. I didn't realize it as much. I mean, I was always side hustling, right? So it was reactive. And then I got into my own space. I'm like, wow, I wear many hats. I'm doing a lot of things. I got to do them better, more efficient. For us, right? When we show up, what we're looking for is like, hey, what's your goals? Right? We're educating. We're bringing the conversation back down or forward, whatever you need. We're meeting our client where they are. And it's very different than this transactional base, right? Hey, you need a tax return. Here's your tax return. You owe or you don't owe, right? Here's a financial statement, right? A lot of that is, now tell me about what's going on, right? So we're trying to do things that the traditional CPA firm isn't doing right now in our space, is particularly the micro and small business space. That's our specialty.
Define for me, because it can be interchanged. And I know you have a very unique definition, not unique, but a specific definition. Tell me, what's that range? Define micro, define small.
Yeah. So and I'm going to say this too, like we're one of the first that was using the term micro pre-pandemic, right? Then it started becoming wide because the independent contractors needed COVID money, right? And then we started having to redefine that. Government says 0 to 100 is small business. In what world do we live in that
could ever survive? Right.
So for me, it's 1 to 5 employees.
Okay.
Right. Your solopreneur, that's your micro guy, right?
Yep.
They may have 1 or 2 people, right? The shop that we're in now is 1 or 2, 3, 4 people, right?
Right.
And then small business to me is about 50.
Okay.
Right? That's small business. Otherwise you're getting to tens of millions. And I don't look at that as small anymore in terms of what we bring to the table. Your team has to be much larger at that point.
Right.
So that's the specialty. That's what we gravitate to. And so I do feel like there needs to be, what we do is we care, or I shouldn't say care, but we provide more wraparound type services. So there's the mentoring, the coaching in there, right? There's the social media conversations that are in there, right? So we're really thinking about the overall business. And yes, we do the taxes and accounting, right? And that's how I frame it all the time.
Right.
And we argue about this because it's like, well, you're selling your business. I'm like, right, but that's not like anybody does that.
Right.
That's not what we're doing. This is an after effect, right? And what they come to me for is because we see across all sectors in the conversations that we have. So with our value is through the roof when it comes to those things.
Well, and for the listeners too here that are, maybe in their first venture and getting this going, you can find easy shortcuts to accomplish what you need. For example, as a lawyer, I get people all the time that are like, well, we formed this entity, we did it through LegalZoom and we're good on it. Or I filed it myself. But what I explain to them is if they don't understand, about 85% of formations are the same.
Right.
But the most critical aspect of that is that 15 to 20%, that's your business and your relationships and all the other factors that come into this. And so why would you leave that up to a computer where you fill in a blank to give you a document that end of the day, I want every single client, I'm sure you do, to make millions of dollars. When it becomes a really expensive problem is down the road, why wouldn't you pay just a little bit more to get that value, to have somebody understand you and to do it? Is that what you experience a lot too? Is the value proposition of learning? Like, how do you talk to entrepreneurs to say, hey, there's a value I give? How do you have that conversation?
I really struggle. I mean, communication is one of my other top 10 fives, right, in my strengths. But I struggle because I think it's just natural for me to go and help.
Okay.
I have tried to define, people ask me like, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, I just want to help. What does that mean? I'm like, whatever it means, whatever you need. Like, that's what it means. And people need specificity. Our value, I think, comes out in when people meet us and we have conversations, right? In the social media and those things. That's where I tell people, go look. If you want to know who we are, go look at our social media, you see family and everything else. I think for us, what I did differently is that I saw that there was this gap between pricing and need.
Sure.
And so it was like, cool, here's our pricing for monthly bookkeeping. They're like, right, but I just starting. I don't have all that. I'm side hustling.
Right.
Well, who also side hustled? So I said, you know what, we're going to create a solopreneur and a micro business plan for them. Okay. Right. So it's half, right, our normal monthly rate, but it's meeting them where they are to get them on board, educate them and help them grow. And we're still providing the same level of services because it doesn't take anymore. And I think we've gotten so much into, let's look at our revenue. Let's get those KPIs. Let's look at the per hour, per rate, per person, for that. We can still make a ton of money and still do a ton of good at the same time. And that's where I said, okay, then I'm not focused on revenue. I'm not focused on those. We'll see if this project, this idea, I can either be the Elon Musk of the world or, be homeless, right? Sure. I'll go work for somebody. But that's where we have looked at these things very different. Whereas a lot of people will tell you, I don't change my prices. This is what it is, right? But we have so many wonderful ideas, right? You were at the tech event yesterday. These ideas come from just an idea,
right?
And you need that support system to get them to that pitch.
Right. No, that's right.
And that's where the support team comes in, and the right people, not saying, here's an invoice. Right? I'm not going to, that's consulting. Let me stop you there. Here's an hour consulting. Or let me just send you the bill that we talked for 45 minutes. No.
We sometimes do that as lawyers, but we add value during that 45
minutes. I get it. And so let me say this, right? Clarification. I'm not knocking anybody that has to run their business the way that they feel they need to run their business. I love capitalism. I look at it very differently.
Well, you and I are on the same page, because the way that, we engage in what we do is, and I tell clients this all the time, is when you call a lawyer, the clock starts ticking,
right?
Usually. But if I don't add value, I'm either going to say, I'm not adding value right now. I don't think, and I have these conversations like, I don't think I'm going to add any value here. I'm happy to come on it, but I just want you to know, I don't think it's going to be valuable. 9 times out of 10, they're like, I don't care, come. Right. But I try to signal that to them when I believe we're outside of what I'm bringing. They can still make the choice, but we signal it. Lily, I wanted to ask you from a marketing standpoint. I didn't know the Victoria's Secret thing, which is a powerful brand.
Yeah.
So you've branded products, and now you're here branding a service that's very, very unique. Give me some advice. We got you here. As a service support person, how do I communicate to my potential clients? And I think entrepreneurs can see that are in the service business, right? How do I communicate to them value?
No, and
when we're deemed to be so expensive, like, oh my gosh, why would I pay that lawyer $1 million an hour? It's not $1 million an hour.
Right.
Close.
No, and that's a very good question, because that has been one of our challenges. How can we market our value? Because it is hard. And, being on board now with the firm, and, I was like, okay, it's going to be a challenge. How am I going to market a CPA firm? It's not a glamorous service, right? It's not, it's not a tangible product that people can touch, so it is hard to be able to speak, and market the value in our services. And I enjoy it, and I do it for fun, but it's just being relatable. So I think it's just being relatable. And I think one of our strongest points that has helped us is, it's just creating those relationships, that one-on-one, personal touch. And when people meet us, they see that, and I try to make sure that our social media, that when people go look at our social media, that they see that as well too, if they haven't met us. This is Robert and Lily. They're relatable because we get it, because we are small business owners. That's what has really helped us.
No, that makes sense, because I do follow your social media, and I see the business posts that are coming out, like, here at this startup event. Right. I also see the families, the date nights, those things for y'all. So you're very relatable. Let me ask you this one. Have you ever had it where you have determined a client is not a cultural fit with what you're providing?
Good question. Let me also say, she doesn't have a marketing background, right? So this has come very natural to her.
You don't have a marketing background?
I kind of self-taught. He pushes me. I through watching YouTube videos.
Wow.
Webinars. I do attend webinars, whether it's social media, marketing.
That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. Okay, I've never known that. You didn't have to disclose that one, but it's even more impressive.
I wanted to because I think a lot of times people look at us and they're like, "Hey, you got these things put together." No, we're also figuring it out.
Oh, of course.
But also, I love her to tell her story more, right? To really share what the impact that she's made in learning and walking through some of these things, not having that support system.
Right.
To go to your question. I have certain beliefs. I think they align with the majority of Americans, majority of business owners, majority of people in my peer group. But one of the things that I, again, throughout this year, that we've just said, this is who we are, and we're learning that a little bit more, right? We're moving forward a little bit more and more. And I think it's such a tough question. People are like, well, who are you? What do you want to do? And it's like, we want to help everybody. And so by doing so, we have to keep the door open for everybody. I don't think that I've ran into people that feel that because they pay a fee, I work for them.
Sure.
Don't work for you. We work together. And I had to have that conversation this week with a client and say, I'm happy to continue to work. If you feel my fees are too high, you're happy to make that decision. I'm not going to lower my value because you feel that my fees are too high.
Right.
The other part is, you guys need to be more engaging.
Sure.
That's my client. And if that's not you, then you need to find somebody that's a fit for you. That's probably been that. And I had one other client. Again, the expectation was just, hey, I can call you whenever, not for an $800 tax return.
Right.
You can't call me whenever. I mean, I always tell them you can email me if it's a simple question, happy to answer. And I've had to create boundaries, right, in a better, much better way than answering texts at 8 o'clock and things like that.
Sure.
But I haven't found anybody, and I think that's just a testament to the fact that I can relate to a lot of people. And I think when people do meet us, they really do see our personality, see our passion. It comes out. It's not scripted. You're not feeling that like something's off. And that's really I think that's our powerhouse thing for us. And so we connect with a ton of people, so the potential's there, right? We talk no KPIs today. We're going to have KPIs next year for sure.
Sure.
And I think that opportunity from all the hard work that we put together, the last 7 years, but even more so this last year is going to pay off.
Well, I hear some really cool KPIs you've got going on that are not financial, that I think is really, really impressive. Let me shift over to community. In getting to know both of you, I've been really, and even in this conversation, I'm sure everybody can hear the emphasis on community, from the beginning, is so strong with you all. And I think it's really, really impressive. So much so that tell us because people may be going, where are they right now? Tell everybody where we're at.
Yeah. So appreciate that. When you reached out and said, hey, let's do this thing, I'm like, cool. And so let's find a spot. Right. And so there's a lot of beautiful spaces in San Antonio, right? A lot of people that would share their beautiful spaces. So we had the opportunity to work with Folklores Coffee, right? So they have their first location off of 35, right? New Braunfels. And if most people that know Folklores, if you look them up, you can see all the hard work that they did during the pandemic. I believe they fed like 6,000 people, right? Yeah. So they actually had 2 locations, right? So I won't share too much of their story, but that's where we're in right now. Is that I reached out to Emily and Tattoo and said, hey, can I have the podcast in where your second location is going to be? Because this is true entrepreneurship, right? They're trying to come back to the South Side. They're trying to make it happen. This is them finding a space and saying, okay, how do I design this? We don't have a design team. Right. It's not a franchise, so you're not bringing out this proof of concept. They're just trying to come back to serve the South Side where they live, where they love. And so they were gracious enough to share this space with us. That's what we're in here. And we're excited for them. I'm already coming up with ideas right now when I talk to them.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm sure they're listening, and we'll make sure we put it in the description as a thank you for the location that we always do. You should come and definitely check it out. Their branding, I think, is phenomenal. I think it's super cool.
It's the sweetest husband and wife team.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Sweet.
But you're right. This is almost symbolic of entrepreneurism, right? I mean, in fact, my first venture that I had, I mean, it was somewhat like this, like, how do we squeeze this in? How do we meet all the ADI? Okay, well, the grand vision of high end, we just ship it in and someone bolts it to the floor. No way. It was plywood.
Yep.
It was plywood, figuring it out exactly where it was. And then over time, we were able to progress that. So thank you for them for that. But again, coming back to when I asked you, let's have a podcast that represented what you guys were doing from a community standpoint, I don't want it to be lost. You picked this place as somewhat symbolic of what you do to give back and help the people that are here. Tell both of you, tell me about your community interaction and how you guys view community, because you're so deeply engaged.
Yeah. From early childhood, my dad was always, he had a rough childhood, right? And so if you knew his background, you wouldn't think that he was community involved. But when he had passed away, when I was 11, everybody kept saying he's the guy to give you his shirt off his back, right? And he had nothing. He literally had nothing. We lived on food stamps, like nothing. This was back when they were paper. But that's always been in me, help. I've had to learn to kind of temper that.
Sure.
You start helping the wrong people and start to overdo some of those things.
Right.
And so community has just always been important. I've served on my HOA board for 5 years, forest president.
Wow. Okay. That right there.
Yeah.
Out of everything you just said.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I still got neighbors that like me, right? So it's a success story.
Because who likes their HOA president?
My HOA does. I'll tell you, we cleaned up financials. We were transparent. We started creating tangible things for them, social gatherings, right? We put 4 little mini libraries within our community, right? These were ideas that both me and
that's it. You can come be my HOA president because that's exactly what I see. Community focused, even from
pandemic hit, right? People didn't have water. We opened up our pool for them to get water to fill up their toilets to flush. I mean, we did so many. We've had a few people pass away, right, this year, and so we're now going to put a remembrance park in one of the areas that we have empty spaces that I'm working on right now.
And tell our viewers when you're talking about this community, give us some geographic location.
Sure, we're off of Evans and TPC.
Okay.
Yeah, Bold Verde TPC area.
Great.
Love the community, love the people there. Everybody's been fantastic. That's one part of it. The other part is I've always needed a community. I've just never been able to find mine. And so, with giving back, I know that growing up the way that I did, dropping out of school, not having that support system, I'm 40. I turned 40 this year, right? And people look at me and they're like, hey, so at 40 you decided.
40, brother.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So lucky. At 40, you jumped out to do this thing. I've never seen that. I never heard of that. I never thought about it. Right. Until somebody called it out to me.
Right.
And they're like, you quit your job?
Literally as you're hitting the peak, about to go ahead to the peak. Yep.
And I'm like, holy shit, I did. And it was cool though, because that's again who I am. But I was like, I tell people I'm excited to be in the spaces. I'm reinvigorated. I've seen the world for 40 years, right? I know how ugly it can be.
Exactly.
But I'm excited again to go back and make the impact that I needed. If somebody would have told me at 20, you're going to be an amazing entrepreneur, here's help, I'd be an amazing entrepreneur 10 times over than where I am today.
Right.
And I love it. And so that's what we try to do, right? We're going to continue to be in those spaces, try to help wherever we can, whether it's from mentorship, whether it's, teaching finances at a school, whether it's just speaking engagements, whether it's our community, our neighbors, whatever we need. That's a lot of what we do. And she does all that with the boys. I'll let her speak to that.
Yeah. I mean, he perfectly, said it. But yeah, I mean, we are a people person. And if, when you meet us, we love, to meet everyone, and we make sure that we also teach our boys the importance of helping others. I'm constantly telling our boys every morning, if you see someone that needs help, a kid, a new kid that just transferred from a school, be their friend. And actually our middle one, Arlo, he's our sweetest one. He actually, the other day, he did come up to me. He was like, oh, Mom, we have a new boy that's in our school, and I want to go talk to him and be his friend. And
it's wonderful.
And yes, it is wonderful. And that's what it's about. I mean, we don't need much, we have everything that we need. And so it just makes it easier for us to give back to the community because, we don't need much, and we're happy to provide and serve our community.
We've had to do a lot. I've got a big family. I don't talk to a lot of my family. It's things that I wish things could be a little bit different. We have her family and they support us, but we literally have had to kind of figure this out on our own, right? We've not had an entrepreneurial community. We've not had so many different things that we're trying to be for so many people. Right. And make ourselves available to that. She didn't say this, but one of the things, right, that she came up with was book fair, right? And so, everybody gets excited for book fair. So we made sure that we gave, the boys extra money for those that didn't have money for the book fair, right? I mean, it's a subtlety. It's just, and those little,
but it enabled them to then pour into others and say, I have extra. So therefore, and I got what I need, which you just said. So therefore I'm going to go ahead and give that to someone else that has. What a beautiful way to demonstrate that for the boys.
Boys are 8, 7, and 5. Also, just for clarity.
8, 7, and 5. No. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But that can continue to go, even as they grow into other things that they do. It's interesting for you, because we're both in 40s. I just turned 41, is going back to that cultural fit. Because you and I are very much the same. Now, based upon a multitude of life experiences on my side, some amazing, some just really, really bad, you get to figure out who you are, right? And as somebody that did the career ladder myself and was just skyrocketing through all that and then hit, some darkness that was there, you come back out of that and you value what is right. Right. You value family, you value helping others, you value all those sort of things. And it somewhat defines, I think, us for a reason.
Yeah.
Because we are hitting our peak, right? But now our peaks are not in benefiting a corporation,
Right.
which corporations are great. I love all my client corporations and I'll take a lot more. Thank you. But for what we're doing, right, and helping so many others to have that definition and to be now saying we're going to use the prime of our business careers to pour into others, no matter what we win. Whether the finances come or whatever, we're going to be able to help you do. I mean, I do as well. That's what my passion is when I get to the retirement age, which who knows what that's going to be.
Yeah, I'm not retiring.
Maybe you as a CPA.
I'm not
can tell
retiring.
us.
Yeah.
That's what
Right.
you do right now.
When we get there and get to look back down the journey, I think you and I are kind of kindred spirits on that. The KPI is going to be how many of those did we move? And we know even if we move one, there's a success there.
So I like you saying that. And I mean, you said it eloquently, very articulately. So I appreciate that. I'm probably going to steal that later. But I will tell
I was
you.
just echoing what you were saying. I just rephrased it.
Nah,
Lawyers do that.
so
They
much
take
better.
a
That was
copy
great.
of it, just
Yeah.
make it sound
Hey,
fancy.
You're fantastic. You can pay me later. That's
Oh, there we go.
I will tell you, you're right. Folklores, right? So they're our first pro bono client. They're what I said that the other CPA firms and traditional businesses aren't doing, right? Is pouring back in. And we're going to do that. And I love that we can do that. And yes, that's something we're going to track intentionally because we want people to see that because we want to change the dynamics that are in our society and our cultures today.
Right.
Feel free to believe what you want to believe, but still care. And I think deep down in our DNA, we care. We care for each other. We really do. And we need more examples of that. And so I'm going to be happy at the end of the day if I never hit $1 million mark, but I'm going to put my boys and those around me on a better path forward to create a better world. Now, it seems cliche, but I wholeheartedly believe it because we have continued to touch people throughout our lives that have come back and say, hey, thank you. If it wasn't for you, I would have never done. And I'm like, never even thought that conversation was that impactful.
Right.
So now that everything that we do is very intentional and strategic to make sure that we're affecting the change that we want in this community. San Antonio is a beautiful community. A lot of wonderful people here.
Yes.
And through ABLDP and LLI, so shout out to those two organizations, leadership programs as well. We've been able to experience a ton of different places within the community and a lot of people that were just never in our circle, but they're amazing. So
talk a little bit more about that, Lily, because you're in the lead. I know you're both in the leadership program, but make sure people understand because one of the things that we talked about was, in prior to this, was the resourcefulness, right? You guys are very, very resourceful. I think that's another, reason that you've been successful and will continue to be. And some people, maybe not as much. For those Latinas that are looking and saying, I don't have an opportunity, there are opportunities. Tell them about what you've seen, what you've been through to make sure that they maybe take this opportunity to find some of those.
Yes, I mean, as a Latina entrepreneur, I mean, there is a lot of barriers that we're having to face. And it is hard. And part of the organization that I am part of, the Latina Leadership Institute, is we need more of us, people that look like me, at these tables. And it is important because, it's us being comfortable, or bringing in our perspective, and our culture. And that's what this organization does. It helps and guides us being able to serve on boards and commissions, and also in elected positions as well too. So it gives us that confidence, and that we can do it because we do face a lot of challenges, and it's not easy. We're having to work 10 times harder to make it to the top. And, and for anyone that's listening, I mean, you can do it, and one of the things I think that we pride in ourselves is that we don't ask for help. And I think I highly recommend that, reach out to people. What's the best that can happen? If they say no, then you get a no, but you will eventually get a yes. And that's one thing that I've learned. Because I was the same way too. Part of our culture is we don't ask for help. We don't. It's just how we grew up. But now being in this space and being, with this organization, and, I have amazing, we call each other sisters. I have amazing network around me. My sisters, I love them. And I gained confidence, and I do ask for help. I reach out. And because of that, we are where we're at. And it makes a difference.
But see, that pours back into you guys so much saying is we're here to help, right? Yeah. Versus somebody has to walk. I mean, again, resourcefulness. A lot of people I've been shocked that entrepreneurs, they know what they're doing, right? They want to do it. They have a great idea, but a lot of them do lack that resourcefulness, which is why they get lost in the shuffle.
Right.
And I wanted to talk a little bit, because both of y'all are so engaged with our city and with the community, is, talk a little bit about, in your experience, you've come out, you're both in these leaders, you're in the Alex Persinio leadership program, you're doing yours. What do you guys see as strengths of the San Antonio community as far as for entrepreneurs? And then let's get to the weaknesses, but let's do the positives first, right? Is that how you do it? Like an Oreo, positive, negative, and then we'll say something nice at the end. So we'll go with the strengths at the beginning.
I'm trying to build relationships here, not piss anybody off.
Well, I'll do the pissing off. You do the strengths, and I'll leave the weaknesses.
I think San Antonio is a fantastic city. I didn't realize how many resources we had. I came out saying we need more, and then we did some homework to make sure that we had, that they were doing these things. So strengths. We have neighborhood centers all across, right? We have Launch SA, we have Maestro Center, we have Prosper West that's supporting the West Side, South Side First, Sage, right? We have all these organizations, and I apologize if I miss anybody because there's so many.
Sure.
I love, with Geekdom, right? I love these spaces, but I would tell you that I think we're fragmented. We're segmented into sort of that support system, and we really need a system in place that really pulls you from one to the other, right? So it's like you're starting out, so you need X. We can provide the X, but as you move on, so-and-so can do a little better job, right? And those things. And I don't think we have that. There's no path. So you have to be resourceful. When you shouldn't, you should have a roadmap, right? Sure. And so that's one of the weaknesses where I'm like, we don't have a roadmap. People that come to us in our platform was meant to connect those resources, co-working spaces, Impact Guild, right? Shout out to them and their social entrepreneurship, right? We see all these, Bridge is doing an amazing job in what they're doing, Velocity, Texas, right? We see all these and we're telling people they exist, go see them.
Right.
And so we're trying to be that hub for ourselves. So I think San Antonio does an amazing job. Tons of resources, but now we got to connect them.
Yeah. And I agree. It's all about connecting them. And that's what we're all about. Our content is, because we do see a gap. Yeah. We talk with small business owners on a daily basis, and like, one of our things we help them in their businesses. Did you know about this? And 9 out of 10 is no, I didn't know that was available to me. That was available for me. Yeah, go here. And that's what our content is mostly about. But I agree. It's just more about making that connection because there is a gap.
Let me dig into that with the connection stuff. Is it a marketing issue? Or is it a structural issue? Or is it a policy issue? So let me kind of define each of those. Marketing, right, is there awareness enough? You guys do a great job of the awareness, right? If it's a structural standpoint, is it just you need to get all these, somebody to organize them? Or is it literally, which is my theory, that there might be some policy issues here that prevent and really stimulate what should be a better ecosystem for us?
So that's a good question. And from my perspective and experience, it's a lot. There's a lot of information out there, but it's overwhelming. Okay. That's what it is, because I'm having to do research for our business as well too. Anytime we want to try something new, and when I do go look it up, it's overwhelming. And I have more questions. Sure. So I went in there to research and find an answer, but instead I come out with other tons of questions, more questions, and I give up. I'll be honest, I give up, and then I'll be like,
I'm the expert.
Yeah, I'll give up, and then and a couple days later I'll try again. And I think that's from our experience that I can speak to.
That makes sense.
It's all of them, Matt. Yeah, it's all of them. It's awareness. You get on social media, not everybody's on there. You have structural issues, right? We have some of the worst zip codes in terms of education and income inequality in San Antonio across the board. It's policy. But I will say this about the policy. I think a lot of our leaders do a fantastic job. I think the mayor has done a fantastic job in continuing to lead us, but also because the city itself, right, has always been forward thinking. Right, we're bringing a data center down there, right? Velocity City and some of the things that they've done, right, is to bring in that biomedical. We're always forward thinking, and so when you're growing such at a rapid pace, there are going to be some things that kind of fall down. And I think this is where we have an opportunity to be in these spaces, speak loudly, to be able to be put into those spaces, to be able to help assist with creating that system that is there, We just need to do a better job in doing that. So I don't think it's intentional in terms of the policy.
Right.
Yeah, no, I don't think that there's nothing's intentional, right? I think it's just gaps in where we are in our journey. I think the challenge we have for San Antonio, which, I mean, y'all grew up here, I grew up here.
I'm from Houston.
Oh, that's right. You're from Houston.
I'm from Houston. Yes.
Well, sorry.
But she's the one.
At least you came back home.
She's the one that wanted to come back.
At least you came back home.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love San Antonio.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful city, and we're definitely staying here.
So you're staying here. I mean, you know, I got here when I was 9. I came back after law school. I mean, this is community. I think the challenge we have right now that is not intentional, but we're running out of time to fix it. You know, things that are happening in Austin, you know, prices that are coming through, we're either going to define our ecosystem or it's going to be defined for us.
Right.
And, you know, that's another topic. And we've had some offline, very passionate conversations about that. So we won't get into that here. But I think it's the dialogue that all of us that are supporting the community need to come together, connect.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the phenomenal things that the Geekdom guys are doing and Scale Works. And I mean, they are doing amazing things. You know, that part of the sector, you've already mentioned Velocity. I was there this morning on but there are all these different sectors that really there needs to be a forcing function to come together for San Antonio to define who we are as an ecosystem, or we're going to become an afterthought.
Sure.
And when we're an afterthought, we will be profitable. We will continue to move forward, but we're going to look back in 20 years and we're going to have lost our identity. That's my fear in all this.
No, you nailed it. You nailed it. And we've talked to enough people. We were at, say, Startup Week, right? So David Monjou, right, for the Data Science Center downtown, like they talked about. They're going to bring 10,000 students down here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what did, you know, conversations with some of the business leaders. Yep. But they talked about that, right? And so the conversations are there. So you're absolutely right. We need to define what our identity is and how we go about doing that. So I'm excited to see that, but I also want to be part of those conversations.
Of course. And that's the only way it can work, right? Is if there are siloed conversations, be it sector or influencers, because there's some very amazing influencers for our community, then you lose the lack of diversity of thoughts, right? You lose in this community, our strength is the diversity of people, the diversity of thought, the diversity of experience, which I think is one of the most unique things in the entire country. I mean, I went to law school in Alabama, Roll Tide. I love my football team. I just lost some viewers off of that. But the reason I would not grow, I didn't want to have a family down there.
6-0.
The reason I didn't have a family down there was there was not the diversity of thought, of people, of experiences that we have here. So your point is exactly right? You have to be at the table. I have to be at the table. She needs to be at the table. We need to have everybody at the table to say, okay, from this diversity of thought, perspective, experience, community, that's how we define it. Where do we want to be? So I'm going to let you fix that one. I'm just going to run a podcast. And I'll join you.
No, toss it up here. I'm going to take the hot potato because, you know, again, nobody's doing what we're doing.
Exactly.
Nobody's doing it, right? We have wonderful business leaders that sit on boards and do those things.
Yes.
I'm in the trenches.
Yep.
I'm sitting in front of Startup Week. I'm meeting anybody and everybody that's willing to talk to me because we're trying to figure out how we can continue to serve and share the voices of the people that call us, right?
So I always close these out, and the time's been flying by. And I know we didn't get to talk about everything, but I think we hit most of it. But I always end these out with two things. First one, what's the future? Like if you're going to look 5 years down, which you've already talked a little bit about next year, but I'm going to get you further. 5 years down, tell me what each of you are doing, because I mean, again, from your leadership and community, there may be, I got a feeling there's a lot more than just I have a CPA guy here. And then let's just start with that one. That was a big question. Where are we 5 years from each of you?
Yeah, I will tell you, so I'm not going to give away trade secrets. Because again, nobody's doing what I'm doing and they got bigger pockets.
If I'd have known you were talking about trade secrets, I would have done a whole little thing about non-disclosure agreements don't protect your trade secrets. So be careful.
I don't want anybody saying, oh, let me do that thing, right? That he just talked about. We're going to show up we're going to continue to show up very differently. We're going to continue to disrupt. We're going to continue to serve. We're going to find better ways to serve. We're going to grow the firm locally first. I definitely have some reach with virtual, right? In different parts of the US. I want to start connecting with different parts of the US to see what other people are doing so that we can bring that both to our firm. I think our firm, definitely the traditional firm, CPA firm, needs to adapt. we need to be very, very intentional in thinking about those wraparound services and those conversations from start to finish.
Right.
So I see us growing. I see us hiring locally. I see us creating an internship, a very experiential internship, which is already being worked on with CityMester. I'm going to reach out to all students and startup. So we're going to redefine a lot of things, and that's the work that I want to put in. And then hopefully, we make a little bit of money along the way.
Lily, what about you? Where do you see?
I mean, we talk about this all the time, and one of the things that always comes up is, growing our business. And we will. I know we will. We're going to grow a business locally, and that's the goal. And I have several business ideas of myself. So hopefully in a few years, you'll probably see me,
angel investors.
Yeah.
Yes, I have several great business ideas. So
I don't think it'll be several years before we hear one of those. I don't believe that part.
It's going to happen, and that's on my, it's on my list, and so that's where I see.
Representation. I didn't touch that. Representation on boards. I did the SA board.
Yeah, serving on
boards. I paired. Yeah, they're fantastic. Kieran and Gladys are fantastic. So I paired. So I'm in discussions with sitting on a couple boards here in San Antonio. Not economic development type stuff. So
that's great. That's where we need that diversity on everything we do. Last question for you each. You've got basically a minute and a half. What's the most vital advice you can give a young entrepreneur?
Find a community. Find a community.
Not shocking that you said that.
I wish I wish I had people that thought like me. I always felt like an outlier, and today I don't, because I'm with people that give me an audience, and so I appreciate that. They've breathed life into me. Find the community. It doesn't matter what you want to do. You want to be a teacher, find a community of teachers, right? If you want to be a firefighter, find a community. You want to be military, find that community. Talk to people. We do it in colleges and things. I don't think we do it as effectively.
Got it.
But find a community and start there, and I think you'll find your way at that point.
That's great. Lily?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So what I like to call it is a business tribe. Find your business tribe.
Oh, I like that one. Yes. You stole one of mine. I'm still one of yours.
Are you going to steal mine? But I will say it takes time.
Sure.
It's not easy, and one of the other things is, we like to keep it real. Like, we're not going to tell you this is easy. Like we said, we've been doing this, Kenmore, 8 years. And right now we're at a good spot where we do have that tribe supporting us, where we can reach out. And the second thing is what I said earlier is, don't be afraid to ask for help. Sure. It is very important, because we don't do that. And the third thing is, going back to asking for help, don't be afraid to reach out to someone to mentor you. Because, I wish that I had done that at my early ages, so I'm not 40 yet. But it's one of the things that I regret. I wish that, that I had someone to teach me, about entrepreneurship, the possibilities, especially being Latina again. So don't be afraid. If they say no, that's okay. Keep asking, because someone will say yes. Someone will be there to mentor you, to guide you, and it's okay to reach out for help and to do that.
That's wonderful.
That was fire. You told her one thing, she gave you three.
I know. We're going to have to clip that one and send it out there for it. Well, I wanted to thank you guys again. Both
thank
of you
for having us.
It's been fantastic. I mean, again, these conversations, that's why we don't do the scripting and that sort of stuff, because you just never know what we're going to say. For those of you that have taken the time to listen, thank you for listening here with us. And we just want to make sure that you subscribe to our channels. If you're on YouTube watching this video, which one of them just died, because we're entrepreneurs and we're always figuring this thing out, but literally it died at the last second. You click that subscribe button. That just tells us we're doing a good job. Leave us a comment in there. Give us a thumbs up. If you're on Spotify or Apple, same thing for us. We love your feedback. We're going to make sure if you check that description, you'll be able to find, I have a CPA guy here so you can connect to these two wonderful people, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.